John Cardoza stars as younger Noah in the new musical The Notebook on Broadway. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. John, I wanted to start by asking you this novel and movie, and now the musical, just resonates with so many people. It's such an enduring story of love and the passage of time. What about the story most resonates with you when you first saw it, and then when you were, diving into the role? What about it most kind of, speaks to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was pretty young when the film came out, which was my first introduction to the material. And I don't think I really understood it in beyond the sort of love story that everyone knows it to be at the time. But I think that is kind of what makes it so special is that at that time, what I could really grasp onto was sort of like the broad strokes, which is, the enduring love and the decision to, to build a life with somebody. But as I got older and I revisited this material and I read the novel, um, I just sort of began to understand that because you get to experience a lifetime over the course of the novel or the film or the show or whatever medium you're watching, um, it kind of it shines a light on the fact that anyone's life can be special and worth remembering if you decide that it is. They are living very normal lives, these two. There's nothing extraordinary about it. They're not, curing cancer or traveling to outer space. They're just two people who happen to meet each other and fall in love, and that to them is a miracle. And so every time that they touch hands, every time that they, hear music or see, a sunset, like that is something to them that is so precious. And so I think for audiences experiencing the material, it sort of invites you to look at your life in the same way. And it's sort of, for me, it was just reigniting my passion for being alive at the same time as the people that I happen to be here with. That is not a coincidence.
It's a lovely thought and sentiment. You originated this role in the tryout in Chicago of younger Noah. I wanted to just ask, how has your understanding of the character changed from then to now? Has it deepened? What did you kind of love about that experience, and how has that kind of translated to this bigger stage and bigger environment for the same role, but how has your understanding changed over time?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely changed so much. It's gone deeper and deeper and deeper. As we get older, we process the things that we have experienced, more and more and more, whether aware of it or not. And so I think, what you latch onto, or what I latched onto in Chicago was deeper than broad strokes, but as much as I could fit into the few months that we had. And then when I left the show and I had time, there was a year and change before we were able to revisit the material. I had so much time to really think about who this person is, beyond the story, the before, the after, like all of it. And so for me, the deepest piece is Noah and I share the loss of our mothers, and so this has been an opportunity for me to explore my own experience of that kind of an event. It's the most tragic thing and the most important thing that's ever happened to me, and so that is something that will be a lifelong process of understanding. And so returning to Noah and being a little bit farther along in my process with that sort of deconstruction, um, only, it reinvigorated sort of my passion for his resilience and um, his willingness to look for pockets and joy after this event that I think on the outside looking in, many people would not be able to fathom being happy again after that, especially at his age. That is something that could easily consume somebody, but he does not allow it to. And that's been inspiring for me personally to, explore and experience, because there are certainly days where it does feel all consuming and it's hard to see the other side. But this has been an opportunity for me to explore what it would be like to move through the world at peace with everything that's happened.
Yeah, that's again a really beautiful sentiment. And I feel like doing a show about the enduring power of love, no matter where you are in your life and, generations, is really powerful.
Yeah, and love in every form, not just the romantic, but familial and platonic and all of that. It all exists in that story.
Yeah, and what is so unique about this show is you're sharing essentially the role with two other brilliant actors, Ryan Vasquez and Dorian Harewood, who are so different, and you're playing him at very different moments in time. But what I was so moved by with both Noah and Allie is how much all of these different actors have really created, a kind of common character, right? Even though you're so different in different moments in time, it really feels like you're inhabiting the same character and kind of spirit. So just wanted to ask you about collaborating with Dorian and Ryan to, find those similarities. How much did you want to accentuate them, or did you just kind of play the material and let it, kind of come to life as it does?
I think it's a combination of all of these things. I think um, you're right on the money. I think in the sense of we all have the same source material, which is the novel and then the script of the show that we're working with. And because it's all written with the same character in mind, he really lives on the page. But in terms of finding um, the sort of isms of who he is, the characteristics, the physical characteristics, the way that he moves, the way that he speaks, his um, everything that you see on stage. Uh, I think that it has just been over time, spending a lot of time with these other two in the same room, um, partaking in these conversations about who this person is, where he came from. I think we all just kind of like at some point reached a similar temperature. And it began with sort of finding a similar sort of vocabulary of movement for him. There are like certain staples that we can return to if we feel like we've lost the character sort of through line. But I think the more time we spent with each other, the less crucial things like that became because uh, it's sort of like you were saying, and I hope that people are, experiencing out in the house, that it really did find sort of a similar temperature throughout. So I think it's been a combination of time spent together and source material.
Yeah, it really does translate out to the house. You share most of your time with Jordan Tyson on stage, who plays
Yes.
younger Allie, who's just wonderful. I wanted to ask you about working with her because it's such an important part of the story. We see you, meet for the first time. It has to really kind of spark this enduring love story. So, what is it like working with Jordan, and what do you think, these two characters immediately see in one another when you play that first scene together?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be tough to talk about Jordan Tyson because I could go on for a very long time. I think she's very special. She is an actress who won't quit. And when I say that, I just mean, we've been working on this material now on and off for the last couple of years. And she is somebody who, no matter how many times you hand her the same scene and send her out on that stage, she's going to find something new and she's going to find some way to breathe some sort of fresh life into it, which is a gift to me. And um, it keeps me on my toes in a really sort of beautiful way, which I think is part of what makes those opening scenes so bubbly and that tension is kind of palpable is um I think she ignites in me sort of a playful energy. I think we have a similar approach to the material in that our time spent off stage in the moments before the show begins are kind of it's time spent communicating and also tapping into some of those younger, more playful, energetic feelings and sort of releasing whatever has been happening in our days and just sort of being there together to play the scene in front of us. Um and part of that is like I said, like finding new life in those scenes every night. And she is very game for that. Yeah, and so sometimes because I'll be out there and I'll receive something so new and so fresh from her, it strikes me in a deeper way on any given night, and that's yeah, she's special.
Yeah, that really comes across to the house as well. And I wanted to ask you too about, I think, one of the standout songs of the show that you two share, Sadness and Joy, which is so beautiful, so complex. I know you've said it's your favorite, one of your favorite moments of doing the show. So what
Yes.
is it about that that is just so joyful for you. What do you love about that number in particular? Because it really does, it's one of the highlights of your arc in the show and one of the best songs in the score, I think.
Oh, I'm so glad that you feel that way. Because I agree. I think it is a really beautifully written song. And I think what I love so much about it is that not only is it to me sort of like a thesis statement of character and of who he is, and it's one of the moments where he really reveals himself not only to Allie but to everyone. But it's also just kind of that song to me is the essence of what life is. We were talking earlier about, the sort of magnitude of loss that is losing a parent or anyone. And you go through life, Ingrid refers to it as sort of like sadness and joy being these two feelings that kind of are constantly edging each other out over the course of life. And she said something really profound the other day that I loved, which is that she said sadness chooses you, but you can choose joy. And some days the sadness wins. Some days you allow yourself to fully experience that and go through that. But there is always some sort of lift in those moments to be found if you're really looking for it, which is who he is. It's the sadness is losing your parent, losing that friend, losing that confidant, that person who sees you more honestly than anyone else, but the joy of knowing that you had somebody in your life who did. um and how lucky you are to experience that and to be able to walk around with that in your life. Sorry. um and getting to communicate that to an audience through that song that is so gorgeously written is like the ultimate gift I think that can be given to an artist. So that song to me has been it's one of the first songs that I heard from the show and one of the songs that I felt um drew me to the show as a whole. And I was like, oh gosh, this is just going to be so special, because I was like, this is something that I think a lot of people don't know how to phrase, and it's written so beautifully and poetically. And yeah, so I'm very honored that that is part of my role.
Yeah, it really is, I think, emblematic of how terrific the show and the score are. But also, I think people are expecting it to be a tearjerker, and we certainly get that. But I also love the moments of levity and joy
Yeah.
in the show too. Like the song you get to do, and there's other characters in as well. "Kiss Me" is just so fun. The kind of internal monologue we get to hear Noah and Allie experience. How just how fun is that for you after doing these kind of heavier moments, and that the arc of the show has some real emotion and heft, to get to do something that's kind of full of anxiety but also fun and funny and comedic?
Yeah, I always think of that moment as sort of like appropriately vulnerable because it's one of my favorite things about playing this role is getting to revisit the nostalgia of my youth and sort of looking back on these moments that at the time felt so like profound and deep, like like seeing somebody and making yourself physically available to somebody in that way for the first time is really monumental. But you look back on it and you're like, wow, it's so much more awkward than I thought it was, at the time. It's like but it's beautifully awkward. It's like so that is a very yeah, that is a really joyful a moment for the both of us. And also I think it's nice for everybody in the audience to get to revisit that sort of discomfort and just sweetness, and that it's so innocent. And yeah, but I think that Becca and Ingrid both did a really incredible job of taking a story that is inherently, I think, quite tragic and sad, and giving it a nice sense of humor. And I had this teacher who once told me that a sense of humor is really has nothing to do with what you find funny. It's not about comedy. It's about the way that we deal with life. It's the way that we handle sadness. And so I think that they've really employed sense of humor in that world where it's like the humor is not just there to be funny. It's there because we need it, because people need it. Life is tough. We have to laugh in these in between things, and remove some of the heaviness in that way. So yeah, I think they are two artists who are very good at finding the sense of humor in life.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the end of the show too, because, in contrast to the sense of humor in these lovely moments, the end is quite emotional. It's very, I'm sure it's taxing for the company to perform, and it's very taxing. You can hear, how emotional the audience gets towards the end of the show. But I wanted to ask you about the end because all of the characters come out together at the end and sing that beautiful coda. How cathartic is that for you after going through, this 2+ hour journey? The kind of highs and lows of life as a character, to just sing that song, be together as a company, and kind of feel that release with the audience. How does that feel for you?
I think it's beautiful and I think it's necessary, you know? I think it's a nice release to sort of, I mean, you experience, like I said, you watch this whole life play out and you really grow attached to these people. And so I think it's a nice moment to sort of say, this is all of us. Thank you for going on this, journey with us and receiving it and being open and available to us. And I think there's this moment of gratitude between both the audience and the cast where it's sort of like, they thank us for the experience. We thank them for being open to the experience. And it really is, I think, what makes the energy in the room so electric at the end is that it's an entire room full of people celebrating life.
John Cardoza, congratulations on The Notebook. Thank you so much for talking to Gold Derby today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to meet you, David.